Hello, and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, science fiction, and horror novels. I'm Evan.
And I'm Chad.
And today is our first recap video for Jade City by Fonda Lee.
Yes, indeed. Man, it is nice to be reading something new.
It is, and I really like this a lot.
So good.
This is a lot different than some of the other stuff I've been reading. Like, I haven't read anything like a crime kind of like gang fantasy in quite some time. I think the last one that I read was Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom.
Those are the ones with the awesome covers, right?
Yeah, really cool covers.
Yeah.
Those are great books. I like those a lot, but this is a lot more graphic. This is a lot more... it kind of reads like a TV show almost.
Yeah. Yeah, like a gangster, like a gritty crime.
Yeah, and just like the way that the scenes are kind of set up and the action takes place and down to like the conversations and stuff, I do feel very much like I've been kind of dropped into like something that I'm kind of just watching unfold, which is really easy to read and really fun.
Yeah, it's definitely got like a soprano-y, like crime family, you know?
I've heard it compared to Peaky Blinders.
Oh, okay.
But I've never watched... I think I've watched like 2 or 3 episodes of Peaky Blinders.
Same.
Yeah. It's not that I didn't like it. I think what turned me off on Peaky Blinders is that they're using like modern music.
Oh, really?
And yeah, like there's like an Arctic Monkeys song that came on and I was like, that's not right. Like, but you know, different strokes for different folks. But yeah, we are kind of moving through this right now for the first time, or at least I am. You've already read this first installment, right, Chad?
Yep, just the first book. It was about a year and some change ago.
Okay. Was there any reason why you didn't keep going with the series, or did you just get distracted and read something
I got
else?
distracted, and I honestly didn't know that the other ones were out. I don't know. When did the second one come out? So Jade War came out in 2019.
Okay, and Jade Legacy came out, I think, last year or really early this year. I can't remember, but really recently. Jade Legacy is still in hardcover. I don't know how I'm going to get around that.
I know. To have like two paperback books and then one hardcover, that's just going to wreck you, huh?
It's going to make my shelf look terrible.
Oh, no.
With all of that, let's dive right into the first synopsis.
All right.
The series begins in the Twice Lucky restaurant. Barrow and Sampa, 2 kitchen workers, try to steal Jade from a Green Bone, but are caught by the Mike brothers, 2 fists loyal to No Peak clan. The 2 boys are beaten, and after Sampa reveals information on a new Jade smuggler in town, they are taken to see Call Lan, the pillar of No Peak clan. Lan listens to the Abuke boys' account of the Carver, the man who killed Guy. Hilo thinks the Mountain clan has something to do with it, but Lan is not so sure. He sends the boys off and orders Hilo to send some lower-ranking foot soldiers called Fingers into the Armpit district to check things out. Lan speaks with his grandfather, the previous Horn, and suggests his weatherman, Doru, go into retirement. He also mentions a woman named Shay is coming to visit. Sen attacks Lan, overpowers him, and tells him that without intention, no amount of jade can make you powerful. He commands Doru to stay. Hilo visits his lover, Wen, in Papa District. They discuss the current state of No Peak clan, and Wen flatters Hilo but suggests he needs stronger fists in his employ. Call Shay, Hilo and Lan's sister, arrives in Janloon after studying abroad in Espenia. Hilo goes to the academy to speak to his cousin, Andon. He warns Andon that change is coming. We learn about Andon's family history. His dad left the country and his mother slowly lost her mind to the Itches. On boat day, Andon gets into a fight with some mountain boys. The fight is broken up by the mountain clan's Horn, Gaunt, who takes Andon away in his car. Gaunt calls Lan to tell him he'll return Andon in 3 hours as long as Hilo doesn't cause trouble. Andon is taken to the mountain leader, Ait Mata. She offers him a position in the mountain, but in a nearby country where they're producing a drug called SN1. Ait wants to control SN1 so that things don't get out of hand. Andon is let go, and he tells Lan about what went on. Lan decides not to get involved with the Shine business, but he wants to keep an eye on the Mountain clan. Barrow wants to work for Mutt, a green fencer. Lan asks Shay to look into the jade mines and make sure everything is in order with the KJA. All right, that all made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like I said before, a lot of new terms, and some stuff kind of threw me off because I wasn't exactly sure like who was in what position. Like Pillar and Horn and Weatherman, and then And Shay is obviously one of the Call siblings,
Mm-hmm.
but Andon is not a sibling, he's a cousin.
Yeah, kind of like adopted.
That one part where Andon is kind of remembering walking in on his mom in the bathtub with a cheese grater.
Oh my goodness.
That was kind of the point in the book where I was like, oh, well, it's this kind of series. Oh,
right, like, oh, this
okay.
isn't a kid's book.
No, it's wow. Whew. That was brutal.
Yeah.
And so like the itches is kind of like, it's like this affliction that like non-Kikanese people get, right? It's like they can't really handle the jade.
Right. It's kind of like it's kind of like a heroin withdrawal, except to the extreme, which is rough.
Right. I really like the aspect of this series where jade is like a drug.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just this thing that makes you more powerful. It's got this kind of dark side to it.
It's kind of like dirty almost. It's like, yeah, you can use it, but the very thing that makes you powerful is also the thing that will destroy you if you let it. It's kind of like, a lot of books have that like undertone of idea of like power will corrupt you, and this is just like blasting it in your face. Is like, actually it'll literally destroy you, and so that theme is just right at the top.
And like the more jade that you have, the higher status that you have.
Yeah.
Right. The whole thing with the jade is really, really interesting. It's almost like a currency, but it's not. They have their own currency and stuff, but
it's a very huge status symbol. The more jade you have, obviously, the more power you literally have, and then also like societally, you have lots of influence.
I also really like the auras. They can kind of feel each other's jade auras. Mm-hmm. Which lends a lot to the character descriptions. Like when Lan is in that room talking to his grandfather, right? It's like he can kind of like feel his grandfather's aura, and not to mention there's like different kind of like abilities that you have with jade. While people are talking to each other, they can kind of like not necessarily read their minds, but kind of feel how they're feeling.
Yeah,
which adds this whole other aspect to every conversation and this kind of tension. It's a really, really good idea.
Yeah, really good idea. And it adds for this level of dynamicness. She could have just made jade is power and you can move fast and be strong. But no, it's like used in subtle ways as well, where you can read other people's jade or prevent surprise attacks because you're like sensing something weird about this person, or you can just feel their jade aura. Like that person's clearly wearing a ton of jade.
You know what else? I really, really like the characters here. The main cast, at least, there's a ton of different characters, and they're not all 100% fleshed out, and they don't need to be. But the Call family, they're all really nuanced and complex, even this early on in the book. Like Lan is mild-mannered, but as Pillar, he has to have this front of being the strong man, the leader.
Right, the unshakable.
Right, and it's not necessarily the case that he doesn't want the position, but you can tell the pressure is difficult for him to deal with.
It's a duty to him, not a joy.
And Shay is my favorite so far.
Yeah,
Shay is great. Shay is back from doing something that at first she seemed like really, really confident in. She kind of like ran off with this, was it a stone eye or something? Like somebody, the family was not happy about it. And she runs off to Hispania, studies abroad, and it didn't really pan out for her. So now she's back and in this really precarious spot with her family. She's choosing not to wear jade. She's trying to do all these things like get a job and a place to live, even though she's got the most powerful family in the country like at her back, ready to make it all so easy for her, and she doesn't do it. She wants to do it all by herself. She doesn't want to be involved in any of this, but you can kind of tell she is really attached to her family, and I'm really excited to see like what Shay's involvement is in all of this, because she seems very kind of reluctant to get involved. But yeah, I just like these characters a lot.
I completely agree. And the author does such a good job not making, because lots of times you have like the rebel and you're like constantly annoyed with them. Like, dude, you need to fall in line and help the story progress. But not any one of her characters is that single-minded. Like, yeah, Shay's obviously gone out, seen the wider world, and kind of thinks her family is a little single-minded in their approach and their view on things, and she obviously sees some problems with like the power dynamics and the hierarchies within their society.
She just doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, so she's kind of like pushing him away, but she obviously like deeply loves her family and has a lot of respect for them. And, you know, at no point are you like, come on, Shay. You know, like,
you know, we talked earlier about it being kind of like The Sopranos, and it really is kind of giving me that vibe because, you know, family, I've only watched a couple seasons of The Sopranos, but family is such a big deal in that show. Like the relationships between the people that are in that family. You know, some people are more than they appear. Some people have like really dark secrets, and, you know, like Lan and his wife leaving him. That's a big deal. You know, that'll have far-reaching consequences with other things that he has going on. This is, man, this is awesome. Like, the more that I'm talking about this, like,
the more stoked you are.
it's just so well put together. And, you know, I mean, like the beginning of any fantasy series, you're like, I don't even know what any of this means. Like, but she does a really good job at keeping me interested because of these people. Like, I feel like they're really real people.
Yeah, and they live. You planted this sentence into my brain on the last book series that we were reading, but they live outside the page. Am I saying that right? You said it. Yeah, they live off the page where they have a life other than the story here, and she does an excellent job at making that very apparent. They have depth, they have nuance. They're not just living as a vehicle to progress the story. And her world building. So I was rereading the first chapter, and it was nice to reread something because you're not just like totally in it for the sake of like, okay, what is this term, what is that term. You can kind of take a 40,000 foot view and just kind of like sit back and admire some of her handiwork. And Barrow's, it's so clever. We're inside of Barrow's brain for the first chapter, right? And he's like thinking about his plan in getting the jade, and in doing so she reveals like the whole structure of the jade, not the whole but a lot of it, of how jade interacts with their society, what it means for a person to have jade, the societal importance, yeah, exactly. And, you know, and he's like, why shouldn't I have some? You know, he's just fat and blah 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 because he's a member of the family. And we learn that, yeah, some people may be undeserving of it, but they're part of the family, so they can kind of get it ipso facto. Some people can't even have, you know, he couldn't even hold it. That's why he involved the other guy who was a Kekanese.
Oh, he was Abuke.
Abukai, yeah.
I think
yeah.
Abuke. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I think Abuke they're kind of immune, right?
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I got it backwards.
But I like that first chapter a lot too, and I didn't at first actually, but I read it twice because sometimes when I read books, I kind of read the first chapter and then I don't pick it up again for a little bit for some weird reason. So I'm like, okay, I got to start over. But so I read it twice, and like that first chapter, upon reflection, is kind of like a microcosm for the entire plot. It's kind of like a thesis statement. Like, I mean, it's like you've got like these two kitchen workers kind of down on their luck, and they want in on this. And I think that that's kind of like, it seems to be kind of one of the main through lines of the plot is that with SN1, you know, we're kind of getting everybody more involved in this situation.
Insightful.
Yeah. And it's a really, you know, the first chapter it's a little overwhelming. Just because you've got like the Mike brothers, and then you've got like Hilo, and then Sean Jen, and the other
Everyone
two brothers.
Has two names.
Right. Yeah, that is, I guess if I did have like one kind of like nitpicky thing, just like one little gripe is just like there's like a family name, and then there's like a intimate name, and then like a more kind of
formal name.
Yeah, like a more formal name, and then they have like shortened versions of their names, and you know, and then there's like the convention of having the family name first in front of the first name. So sometimes that can get a little confusing, obviously, when someone's referred to as their first name. But it's just
traditional in like Asian,
I don't know, I think it's
cultures.
I think it's either Chinese or Japanese or both. But I can't remember. I know it's a Chinese thing. But I can't remember if it's a Japanese or like a Vietnamese or Thai or anything like that.
Also, and this is difficult to do, come up with words that sound cool that you can use as slang that like instantly come off like, ooh, that's like tight, you know,
smooth.
like
it works.
Yeah, smooth. And when he's like stay cut, kiki, kick, how do you say that?
I think it's kiki.
Kiki, okay. It sounds great in my brain. I just never said it before, so I was like, Kiki. I don't know.
Like
but he's like, stay cut, Kiki. Yeah, I was just like, oh, that's so cool, and it's such like a reference to you know gemstones once they're fully polished, like a cut, finished, aftermarket gemstone is like polished. It's like stay cut. Like that's sick.
I don't know if this is reaching, but that's kind of like what Jade seems to do, is to kind of like keep you sharp, keep you, so maybe that's like where that came from. Or yeah, this is all really, really working for me. I mean, like obviously this is a long form podcast, so it's nice to kind of drop in little gripes here and there, but really the only gripe that I had was just kind of keeping up with who everybody was called. Like what was sometimes I was like, oh yeah, like call Sen, okay, call, and then there's like Duru,
right? You're like, is he related? No, he's not. Okay.
Yeah, but I had that same thing when I was reading Song of Ice and Fire for the first time. Like that was like 10 times worse than this.
Yeah,
because the first chapter, that brand chapter. There's those first couple chapters when they're in Winterfell, and not only is it all like the Starks and all the Starks like people that work in Winterfell and stuff,
right,
but it's like then we get all of the king's retinue in there in like the second chapter or second or third, so it's just like a ton of names. So this is not even
all
close
these houses
to
and no, this is nothing. We got to remember like 2 clans and a couple of their names. I do the thing that confused me was the ranking system.
Right.
It's like, okay, is that like a lieutenant? Like we got the soldiers.
I can help you out with that.
There. Okay, because even when I was rereading it, I was like, okay, which one is that again?
I think I've got this pretty committed to memory. So it's like, so the pillar is at the top.
I like Pilar.
Yeah, sure. Sure, Chad.
Pilar, because like pillar, I don't know. Pilar sounds cool.
It's like a pillar. It holds up.
Yeah, but it's like a pilar. It's a cooler version.
Sure, we'll call it that.
Yes.
There's the pillar, and then there's the horn, and then the horn and the weatherman are kind of. It seems like they're kind of the same rank, but one kind of handles internal stuff and one handles external stuff. That seems to be what the.
One of them is the accountant, and one of them is the general.
Right, and then under the horn and weatherman are fists.
Yes, the fists. That's what.
And then fingers. So if you think about it, like you have a fist and then fingers, kind of like outside of that. So
that probably shouldn't have confused me as.
But there are some.
Which one?
But there are some kind of other rankings, kind of like Lan has his own kind of retinue.
Yeah.
Right. He's got Woon. I can't remember. Woon. Yeah. So Woon is like his personal kind of second in a weird way. So yeah,
he's like his right hand guy.
Yeah. So that is a little bit, and then there's kind of like second tier fists. I think it seems like.
Yeah, kind of the chosen of the fists. Like we have a bunch of lieutenants, but there's only like a couple of them that are really close to the general. Before we go into the next synopsis, there's one thing that I really liked that I want to talk about was. After Andon gets returned to No Peak Clan, after he gets taken by the mountains, Lan is having a conversation with, he sends Andon away, which is like a good move. He's like, you're too young. You just need to focus on being number one. Like that is the honor that you can give the house. He knows everyone's roles really well. So he's like, nope, you do your thing. I got what I needed from you. Don't think about this anymore. Then he gets Hilo and Doru, and they kind of have a little kibosh to figure out like what's going on. And he flexes on Doru because Doru's trying to like kind of come up on him a little bit, and he does it very respectfully, but he's like, he like says it very direct. He leaves no room for, he's like, are you going to respect your leader enough to do what I say and not cause me any trouble on this and undermine me? And he's like, yes, I will. And he like basically just says like, I need your allegiance. Do I still have it? And he confirms it. And it was just like, but he didn't do it in such like a, oh man, wow, really swinging his thing around.
Lan is a really, really good character.
Yeah, and a good leader.
I like that kind of introspection that he has when he's thinking about Hilo. He seems to be a little bit worried that not necessarily that there's going to be any kind of like internal coup or anything, but he kind of has this like hypothetical in his head of like, if Hilo decided he wanted power, I bet most of the fists and fingers would be on his side, it throws like this whole other, dynamic onto everything. And so he's got that to deal with.
Yeah. And that's like even in the Earth's history, that's like a major problem for kings is the general being loved by the soldiers because they have all the military power. They can just decide one day, What are you going to do to stop me? I've got the allegiance and the loyalty of all the people with swords.
But you know what? Like even this early on in the book, I do feel like Lan is a more capable leader, but Hilo is pretty complicated too. It's like, I mean, Lan has already had some thoughts in his chapters where he's been like, Hilo really showed some restraint here. Like Hilo's not this kind of like bludgeon,
right, brash,
right? Like he comes off that way, but Hilo's a very much a rational actor in a lot of senses as well. So it's like that kind of makes me, I have no idea what to expect at all from any of these characters, because
he's really young. We learn in the first chapter that Hilo is one of the youngest people to ever gain his position, his rank, and he, a lot of people don't even realize who he is until he reveals it, how much jade that he has. Also, I love them embedding the jade in themselves. It just looks so cool in my mind, having like, his shirt like ruffles open in the beginning and everyone sees that he's got like studs like going out. It's like a tattoo, but jade wow, cool.
All right, I think with that we can jump on into the next synopsis.
All right. Lan, bringing Woon along with him, visits Chancellor Sun and cuts a deal so that a law goes into place to stop any one person from controlling the KJA. Hilo makes a deal with a local biker gang called the Chrome Demons, asking them to look into an illegal jade trader called Tem Ben. Meanwhile, Shay travels to the jade mines to look into the KJA accounts. She finds that the Mountain Clan has been authorizing mining equipment purchases, and there has been a higher production of jade, but no more actual jade in the vaults. She informs Lan of her suspicions that someone has been stealing jade. Hilo asks when to marry him, and is jumped by some gunmen, and a fight ensues, during which Hilo recognizes one of the attackers, Gam Odin, second fist to Gon Ash, first of the Mountain Clan. Hilo, after escaping with his life, spreads the word that anyone who assists him in finding the two who escaped is a friend of the No Peak clan. The family calls a war meeting, and emotions run hot as Kal Sen blames Hilo and his rashness. Hilo is hurt as Kal Sen lays the blame upon his shoulders, telling him he deserves it. Hilo and Lan speed off towards the Mountain Clan, seeking revenge. Gam, a fist of the Mountain Clan, challenges Lan to a one-on-one battle. A fight to the death ensues, and Lan barely emerges victorious. Lan, after revealing that someone, and he highly suspects the Mountain Clan, has been stealing jade, he secures his support of the KJA, but promises the council that he will attempt to resolve this peacefully and avoid an all-out war.
Wow, okay, so things are really escalating here.
Oh yeah, we got some really cool fights.
Yeah, so whispering someone's name is essentially taking a hit out on somebody, right? It's like one clan commanding for the death of another. Okay, cool. Just making sure.
And it's confusing because the order's off a little bit. Because in the books, Lan, another reveal that this is definitely not a child's book, as he is getting it on with at the brothel with that girl, is interrupted by one of his fists who just got done clearly torturing somebody to get the name. And at the time when you're reading it, you're like, why is he torturing somebody?
Right.
And then right after that, we get the scene where Hilo is attacked.
Right, so it kind of like goes back in time a little bit.
Yeah, but she doesn't tell you that at all.
No, but I guess you can you get the idea.
Yeah.
Like I got it when I was reading it, for sure.
Yeah, there's little things that you're like, oh, okay, but then it doesn't matter at all, and you're just like, whatever, awesome.
Nothing better happened to Wen. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Hilo really loves her, and she seems really cool. I like that part where she's like, I have a gun. I'll be fine, right? And he's just like, that's not gonna work.
Like guns.
Yeah, that was cool. I like Wen.
Yeah, I like their dynamic a lot. Man, I love Hilo in a fight. He just looks so cool in my head, just like stoning his skin as he's getting cut, slashing his what do they call the knives? Like green
moon blades or something like that.
Moon blades, yeah.
I think they have like there's like a dagger. There's like, I think they have like some kind of curved dagger and then like some really long sword that they use. I could be wrong.
I'm talking about the dagger.
Yeah, it's like a curved dagger.
Yeah, and
I can't
it's got
remember
a
what it's
jade
called.
stone in it.
In the hilt.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I know, it's so radical. I can just see like the flashing green. He's jumping around like fast and ducking and weaving and just, oh man, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to find the name of that dagger.
I was wondering too, like right before the chapter where Lan goes to that chancellor, I remember thinking, what is like the system of government here? Like, are the clans the governing body of Kikon, or like what is all? So I'm glad that I got some clarity on that, and the whole jade doesn't mix with gold thing was really enlightening.
Oh yeah,
You remember
refresh my
that?
memory. No, refresh my memory on that. And like now that you're saying that, it is. But but yeah, tell me your thoughts.
It seems like the Green Bones, like those clans, are kind of there to protect the citizens of this island. And like Janloon, they seem to be kind of like peacekeepers in a way, but they're not writing legislation. Or at least that's the way it's supposed to be. The idea is
Yeah.
that so the gold would be the governing body, the political system, the legislature, and then you've got the jade, which is the green bones. But I think what is trying to be communicated to us is that while those things aren't necessarily supposed to mix, they kind of have been.
Right, just power being what power is. It's like
Right.
obviously they have probably more power than the system originally wanted them to have, but I kind of took them as like the samurai class because they have a honor code. Is it Aisho? They have like they
Aisho,
refer to
yeah.
it multiple times where it's like this is like their code that they live by, where they're like the Aisho way.
Speaking of kind of the old guard, kind of old traditionalists, Call Sen. What's up with him? The impression that I got in the beginning of the book was that Call Sen just didn't really want the position of pillar anymore. He was kind of past his prime. His best friend is dead. It's like he just didn't want to deal with it anymore, so he gave the position to Lan, his oldest son. But like when Hilo comes in and Call Sen kind of digs into him and says that it's his fault that he had a hit taken out on him and stuff like that. I kind of got this weird impression that maybe Call Sen isn't all there. Like, am I wrong thinking that?
Yeah. No, I think he's kind of losing it. One of two things is happening. One, which I don't think is the case, he's getting corrupted and he's starting to like work towards the Mountain Clan or something, which I don't think is happening.
Yeah,
I think he's
probably
just
not.
kind of losing his ish as he's getting older. He came down on Hilo because he thinks Hilo, I think, was like affecting his legacy, right? Like in my time, they would have enough respect between the clans that would never happen, even though like that probably totally would happen in his time. He's just being
Well, and
a
the
man.
Mountain Clan is being really aggressive here.
Oh,
You
for
know, I mean,
sure.
like it is very obvious that they're picking at No Peak. You know,
Right.
Lan's stance and kind of his plan for everything was like not necessarily cooperative, but it wasn't really aggressive.
Right.
Not at least not in the same sense that the Mountain. I mean, it is complicated, but I think that what Lan did was very shrewd,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a good call. It would probably, but you know, then it kind of raises the question, like maybe like violence in this situation was kind of inevitable,
Right.
you know, like and I think that kind of is hit on just a little bit. I can't remember if like Hilo says it or maybe Doru or somebody says, you can put this off, but this is going to come down to violence
Right.
essentially. Like there's too much money involved.
And he's like, right now you can control it, and we can keep it between two people. Really, it's like an honor fight, or we can let it devolve into all out street gang warfare, And so I think he kind of makes the right move on that front. He's a very shrewd leader, Lan is, because he realizes when Andon comes back from being with the Mountain Clan that one of the things that the Mountain Clan Pilar was trying to do was plant seeds of doubt in his mind regarding Hilo and whether or not Hilo was going to take over and whether or not like his inner circle was corruptible. I don't think that she
Right.
expected anyone, Andon to trade sides. She just wants to plant the idea inside of Lan and the rest of this country's brains of that, like, there's dissension within the ranks. They're not as strong as they once were.
Yeah, and he could have just totally caved,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's even, and like Doru is just sketchy.
Yeah.
And even Doru's kind of giving me this impression of somebody who's just kind of like, why don't we just go wherever there's the most money, or let's go where there's the least amount of violence and the most amount of money. She has like that memory of her friend and like Doru had like taken pictures of her friend as like a little girl and stuff, and like Shay's opinion of her grandfather was shaken because her grandfather was kind of like, every man has his vices, you know, and it was just disgusting, obviously.
It's like, dude, you can't boys will be boys this one.
No,
all right.
it's yeah, and it's just kind of, it fleshed out Shay's character even more. I did like that scene where Shay goes to the mine. You know, you see like the abuke like working, and it's just very obvious that Gaunt, I think Gaunt is like paying. That was okay. So that was like, I was a little confused about all that. That's kind of like the one thing I was a little unclear on, and maybe not enough information has been given to me so that I could be clear on it yet. Gaunt is buying machinery and fudging the numbers, and like Jade is leaving the mine but not going into like wherever they're stored, like their kind of like Fort Worth
vault. Yeah,
but it's not going there. So like the Mountain Clan is like essentially stealing Jade, right? Is that kind of what's being implied here?
Absolutely, yeah. And the whole, going back to their structure of government, the reason for these families and the clan's existence is to control the Jade. And so like they have the ability amongst themselves to authorize hardware, equipment purchases for the, not production, but the mining of Jade. And so I think it's totally within Gaunt's rights, but I think that
it needs to all be accounted for.
Yes, exactly.
Right,
and it needs to be visible. And she's like, something's going on here because they're purchasing more hardware. Thus, there should be more Jade production happening, but there is no actual more Jade. Where's it going?
See, I had like this really weird thought, and maybe I'm looking way too deep into this, and I should just enjoy the story for what it is. But like, if you're like embezzling or whatever, like, why would you sign your own name at the bottom of that paper? Like, I don't know, just make something, like blame it on somebody else. Like, or maybe that is a development later in the story or something, that it's not Gaunt, it's somebody else like posing as him, or like something really weird. But I just thought that was kind of weird. It's like, if anybody sees this, they're gonna find out. Like, do they want No Peak? Maybe they want No Peak to find out, because that was really easy for her to dig into that. Totally, like, it was right there.
I kind of got the impression that it wasn't a thing that the average clan does, was like that, have that granular level of like inspection on the books. Maybe they haven't visited in a while. I don't know.
Maybe I'm looking way too close at it.
I don't think so.
That's what this is for.
Yeah, because it does seem like some pretty shitty subterfuge.
Right, yeah.
You signed for it?
One thing I did want to talk about was there was kind of an interesting exchange between Hilo and Lan after Lan killed Gom and took his Jade, which, little sidebar here, the fact that people have these Jade pieces studded into them to make it harder for people to, that you have to like rip it out of somebody's flesh after you kill them, to like, oof, that's brutal.
Brutal, yeah.
But anyway,
I know we have lots of honor here in this like ice show thing, but let me just cut this out of his body.
So there's like there's this interesting conversation between Hilo and Lan, where Lan is like putting on this extra Jade that he's kind of won by right, and it's kind of messing with him, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's revealed earlier that he has like a pre-existing condition that his like aura's off.
It's kind of hinted at that he doesn't even really like wearing what he already had. He kind of
like makes him anxious.
Right.
It's like taking too much Adderall or something.
Right. Yeah. It's fitting for Hilo's character that he's just like, however much I can pile on me, like, let's go.
Jade.
I think SN1 probably is going to be like a very big deal in this series.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused on exactly what it does. Like, does it makes it so that people that aren't green bones can use it, right? Can use Jade.
Yeah, it's like the vehicle for non-green boners to that didn't sound great. Is the vehicle for non-green bone users or people to use, and threw me off.
I guess we could call them green boners.
The non-green boners, So the non-green boners can use Jade with SN1 without going insane and like them being like bugs under their skin. Sort of
cheese grater.
Yeah.
Like, oh man,
I have like a skin thing and like, whoa,
yeah, I know. Jeez, that was so brutal.
Yeah, so brutal. But then for the actual green boners, it just gives them like a greater ability to like decreases their or increases their tolerance.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, so the people that can already use Jade, the SN1, it kind of like augments their abilities so that they're able to wear more of it and then by extension utilize more of it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
In Lycanius terms, they would be expanding their reserve.
Right. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of chapter 26, which is where we ended, he asks somebody, a very trusted person, Woon, like a personal question. And the implication is, well,
can I get some of that stuff? Like,
yeah.
Because Lan has to see this through. I mean, he's in a position now where any sign of weakness is going to kind of ruin from the bottom up, like his clan, from the interior, from the inside.
Yeah, he needs to display strength.
That'd be really rough if you were in that kind of position and your brother, who, like, Hilo seems to have good intentions.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, Hilo doesn't seem to want the power of the pillar. I haven't gotten that impression.
No,
really,
I think he really enjoys the prince.
But I think that, and I don't think that Lan is worried about Hilo. I think he's worried, like I said before, about Hilo's fists and fingers.
Right. And his propensity towards, Hilo's a little bit rash and emotional and really subscribes to the old ways of, a green bone gets revenge and strength and physical violence, whereas Lan's like, yes, there's a time and a place for that, but let's temper it and make sure that we don't do something that throws the entire island continent into war.
Well, and there's something to be said about, and I think maybe Shay kind of like thinks it a little bit, but there's that part where they kind of have their war meeting, and it's just Hilo, Lan, and Shay kind of, I think she kind of thinks something like, oh, the like Doru and Call Sen aren't part of this. There's like a new era. We're kind of kicking out these kind of like traditionalist conservative like mindsets because they're not applying to this situation. It like even Call Sen, he wants Call Sen and Doru both really kind of glorify this idea of like a united green bone one clan kind of thing, but unfortunately that's not really the reality that we're all living in. So it makes a lot of sense that Lan would just want his brother and sister involved in this because they kind of get it. Like Hilo is leaning a little bit more toward the kind of traditional mindset, but he's still on Lan's side.
Right. And Lan kind of needs to go like, okay, boomers, I'm doing my thing.
I'm really excited to see how the rest of this book pans out. I wonder if like the rest of the trilogy is like this one war that seems kind of inevitable, or if there's like a bigger bad here. That's kind of what I'm wondering at this point, halfway through the first book.
Me too.
Yeah, because
I don't know.
Well, because the ending of this book, obviously, but I'm wondering, we have 2 more big books. We have a half of this book to read. And
they get bigger, longer length, right?
I think so. They do. And it doesn't seem like this can be wrapped up easily. I don't know how, I also at the same time don't know how we could stretch this one kind of like clan war into like 3 big books.
It needs to get bigger.
I mean, maybe we can. I don't know. I didn't write the books.
Yeah.
So like,
well, it does seem like, there's not a country's level of dug in of roots, like one clan really needs to do is kill like 3 or 4 people and they can basically take over the entire other clan.
This is going to get
much
interesting.
like the Sopranos and the Made Men,
I'm pretty excited for the rest of this. This is good.
Me too. And reading it again, it's been long enough that like it's like I'm remembering it as I read it. It's not like I'm like, okay, I gotta read this again. I'm like, no, first off, it's good enough to read it twice. And second off, it's been long enough that I don't remember all the little details. And so I'm remembering it as I read it. And then it allows me to kind of have a greater level of understanding. I'm like, oh, right. Oh, okay. That's why that's meaningful. And it just, man, it's great. This is not her debut series, is it?
I think it is.
Is it? Wow, we're really on a debut roll.
Let's see. Let's check it out. Oh, wow. Okay. So it looks like Fonda Lee wrote 2 books in what's called the EXO series, called EXO and Crossfire. Looks like EXO and Jade City were both published in 2017. That's interesting.
Wow, busy.
And then there's another novel, and this came out. It looks like her debut novel was called Zero Boxer.
Okay.
Not sure what that is. But yeah, it looks like Jade City is kind of her breakout. So I think that's going to do it for us for our first recap of Jade City. And this is awesome so far. I'm really into it. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here for this one, for reading along with us, and for not spoiling anything in the Discord chat. We really appreciate that, too. Because, I've been trying to get at this book for the last couple of weeks, but, Elden Ring came out, and I was kind of like reading it just like a page at a time. Like I really wasn't reading anything.
And so many people are reading along.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining. It's so encouraging to like look into that channel and just see so much like Green Bone conversation happening.
A lot of Green Bone love. And if you have any questions for us specifically, or any, kind of comments or just things that we could do better, questions that we didn't answer, or things that we got wrong, especially, go ahead and shoot us an email at book.reviews.kill@gmail.com, or you can join the Discord and get in on the conversation there. And if you'd like to support Book Reviews Kill, go ahead and sign up for our Patreon, and the link to the Patreon is in the description on this episode.
There's also the link to the Audible beneath us. It is an affiliate link, so if you'd like to help us out and help yourself by getting 2 free credits and do some audio booking, that link will be in the description below.
Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
I'm going to go read some Green Bone.
Let's do it.
Bye, everybody.